Don't move to Michigan unless you know these 7 things. Michigan is known for its 4 seasons, our treacherously cold, long winters that just never seem to end. We have our summers that are just absolutely beautiful and are never quite long enough, and the spring and fall season, they're just rather unpredictable, and we just never know what's going to come out of those either. But with each of the seasons, they come with an array of activities that you can do, which is absolutely awesome. So if you're relocating to Michigan or maybe you're just buying your first home, there's important things that we're going to cover today about your next home buying experience and things you need to know when buying a home here in Michigan. First thing you need to pay attention to, if you're buying a home here in Michigan, you need to buy a home that has a basement. And why? Because you might be from some of the couple dozen states across the country that actually don't have basements, and that's okay. Understand that in Michigan, it's kind of expected and it's very helpful for resale, because in some states, obviously you guys don't have basements, but here in Michigan, it is rather expected. It offers additional living square footage, additional storage. A lot of time your utilities are located in the basement, also provides shelter in the event of catastrophic storms. Basements are a huge bonus here in Michigan. Now, buying a home with a basement does come with some risks. You have to understand, in the state of Michigan, we are surrounded by water. So there's only 2 types of basements in Michigan. There are basements that leak, and there's basements that are gonna leak. Being that water is the enemy of a home's integrity, actually paying attention to the structural integrity of your house and understanding some of the key features you need to have in your home in order to protect yourself from additional floods, or even worse, people finish their basements and they flood. And that's quite expensive to have done, and you need to check your homeowner's insurance policy to make sure you have that additional sump pump backup coverage and all of that. Now, when you're buying a home in Michigan, you're going to want to pay attention to that home that has a basement has what's called a sump pump. A sump pump, which is a submersible pump, actually acts with the drain tile that's laid around the foundation of the house underneath, and you can't see it. So that water, as it begins to collect inside around the home, that water drains down the walls into the drain tile, flows into a sump pump, and it is sent on a discharge out and away from the house. So buying a home on a basement in Michigan is very important that you find a home that does have a sump pump. And there's also different waterproofing techniques that have taken place. A lot of older construction was built without sump pumps, and what that has done is allowed for different kind of waterproofing techniques to be done that typically do drain into some type of sump pump or some kind of discharge. So when you're buying a home on a basement, you're going to really want to make sure that you at least have a sump pump, especially if you're looking for something that's a little bit newer in construction. Now, a word of caution: if you're buying a home that already has a finished basement, one of the downfalls that we have with finished basements is we can't really look at the structure and the walls around the perimeter of the basement. Is typically covered with drywall or some type of paneling. Hopefully it's drywall. And with that being said, because you cannot see what the walls look like behind the drywall, sometimes people can go and buy a property that actually already has cracks behind the drywall, or even worse, a cover-up job. We've seen that before. Anyway, speaking of water and water intrusion, that's going to actually lead me into the second thing you need to pay attention to, and that is, in the state of Michigan, what is the true value of a swimming pool? This may come as a shock to some of you that do live out of state and maybe relocating here. Swimming pools in the state of Michigan really don't add a ton of value to a home. Swimming pools often cost $50,000, $60,000, $70,000, $100,000 to install, and in the event you can actually receive that money back in terms of resale value on an appraisal, it doesn't really seem to happen here in the state of Michigan. You may get maybe 10% of that value depending on what the pool has to offer and who the appraiser is. But honestly, most people, when moving in the state of Michigan and they're moving anywhere, it's not really looked at as something that's desirable. In fact, it's actually looked at as maintenance. If you are looking at a home and you are excited about having a swimming pool, just understand you may be using it for 4 months out of the year, and that leaves you 8 months of maintenance and worry and draining, and you just have to do so many different things with swimming pools. My suggestion is actually buying something on the lake. Now, you may have decided that you wanted to buy a home with a swimming pool, but make sure when you do buy a house here in Michigan, we're going to get into number 3 here, make sure you buy a home that actually has a garage. Garages are hugely important in the state of Michigan. In Michigan, a garage is very, very important, especially for resale. And in fact, a nice 2 or 3 car garage actually has a better resale value than a giant in-the-ground swimming pool. And that's kind of hard for most to believe, but it is truth. Homes that do have garages, if you had two identical homes that were exactly the same kind of home, one with a garage and one without the garage, the one with the garage will sell for more and faster every single time because garages are hugely desirable. But why? If you're a boater, you may have a boat and a couple of jet skis, you're going to have a lawnmower, you're going to have a snow thrower, you're going to have rakes and shovels and all these different toys that you may have. And also keep in mind, in the state of Michigan, we do use salt on our roads in order to make the roads drivable and safe during the wintertime, and that does eat at the automobiles that you may be driving. In Michigan, we have a huge rust issue within our automobiles. So during the winter months, it's not uncommon for people to be getting car washes on the nicer days, and the garage is awesome for additional parking. The other thing you have to watch out, and this is going to lead us into number 4 today with your automobiles, is that Michigan's car insurance rates are the highest in the country. If you didn't know this, it will be a shock to you when you go to move to Michigan exactly what the people here actually pay for car insurance. It's absolute insanity. It is the highest in the country, and that is a huge shocker for those of you that choose to relocate here. With that being said, with your auto insurance, you have to pay attention to where you are moving to in proximity to Detroit, and as well as there's some other neck of the woods here, but I'm going to talk Metro Detroit here. The closer you get to Detroit, the more expensive your car insurance premiums are yearly. And if you're 30 minutes away from Detroit versus being 10 minutes from Detroit, your car insurance premiums are more expensive 10 minutes from Detroit than they are 30 or 45 minutes away. So when you are choosing to buy a property here, it may be important to you, if you're working within a tight budget or certain parameters and what you can afford, take a look at what your car insurance rates will be and call your insurance provider to say, hey, we might buy a property at this address. And yes, it is area code specific. And with that being said, when you get that quote for your auto insurance, that can be a determining factor when you choose to relocate here, because if your car insurance premiums are going to be through the roof versus one area versus the other, it may impact the way you decide to do that. And why they do that is it gets closer to Detroit. Well, the things that I do know is there is a ton of auto theft the closer you get to Detroit, and the insurance companies aren't in the business of paying out claims. So if you're going to be living close to Detroit, they want to make sure they're protected in the event your automobile gets stolen. What you will find in Michigan commonly is you will find homes that have cement board, you will find homes that have wood exteriors, vinyl, aluminum, and yes, even some homes still have asbestos as siding on homes. But the best insulator that you can have when buying a home here is if you look for a home that is just made of brick. Brick offers more cooling in the summer months and keeps more heat in during the winter months, offering you more efficient energy bills than any other type of siding that you're going to have on home. Now, don't be deceived. You may have a home that is brick faced and vinyl sided on the other side, so don't be fooled by the exterior front photo of the home when you're looking. Now, a brick home does offer a little bit of low maintenance, and with the brick homes, you just have to kind of keep track of and pay attention to, especially in the older homes, is what's called stepping cracks. Stepping cracks are kind of natural occurrence with bricks that happens as a home settles. It also can be a red flag for a compromise of the structural integrity of the property. Now, the one thing you want to pay attention to with these stepping cracks is, one, they're easily rectified if that does happen. They do a thing called tuck pointing, and you'll find weathered brick in chimneys here in Michigan, just because what happens is as those little hairline cracks develop, water intrudes in behind that brick, and just like your foundation, as I discussed with your foundation walls in your house, as that water goes into the brick, as it melts, it will seep in there, and as it gets cold, it contracts. As it heats up and contracts over and over again, that does put some pressure on that brick. And guys, you know I keep talking about water, and that'll kind of lead us right here into number 6. And today we're going to talk about FEMA flood zones. In Michigan, we have, within any 40 square miles that you live, you will run into a lake or a river or a creek stream at any given time. We have bodies of water almost everywhere, and what we have is a lot of flood zones here in 100-year floodplains. What you may not know is in the past few years, probably since COVID, we've actually had a very, very high water table, and lake levels have been near all-time highs, creating some flooding in some of these 100-year floodplains, which is catastrophic. If you are looking for a home, my suggestion as a realtor is don't buy a home that is in a flood zone, unless you're trying to live luxury on the lake and you can protect it and you're not worried about it. You can build out seawalls. But if you're looking to buy a home, you may find the perfect property, but you may not know that it's in a flood zone. And flood zones are not exactly just always right next to the big bodies of water. It's not next to the Great Lakes or Lake St. Clair, or right on just any of the inland lakes. No, sometimes these are just off the cut of rivers and streams. So making sure, and actually I'm going to leave a description here below for you guys to check out the FEMA flood map. All you have to do is type the address in there and read the legend in there, and it'll tell you what kind of floodplain your property sits in. All right, guys, and finally, we're going to talk about number 7 today, which is property taxes. Michigan is actually the 37th most expensive state in terms of property taxes. There aren't that many more states that have more expensive property taxes than the state of Michigan. Now, property taxes in the state of Michigan are based on millage rates, and each city and school district, and a city can have multiple school districts in it, have different millage rates. So you can take one city and it can have 4, 5, 6 different school districts sometimes within there. So knowing what school district you are buying in is very, very important, because it's not based on the city, it's also based on the school district. You need to know where your millage rates are at. Now, Michigan's taxes are based on millage rates compared to taxable value. The taxable value of a property is typically half of the purchase price. So let's say you spent $200,000 on purchasing a property. That means you have a taxable value of $100,000, and say the millage rate for the given city and school district together is 50. At a millage rate of 50 plus or multiplied into that $100,000 of taxable value, what you're going to find is that you have a $5,000 property tax bill yearly. Now, what people don't realize is that Michigan, because of Prop A, we do have what's called capped property taxes, and when you do purchase a home from a seller, those property taxes become uncapped, and the new taxable value is reassessed by the city, because the taxable value, because of Prop A, can only go up 5% or the rate of inflation each year. And because of that, we have a lot of people that have lived in homes for 20, 30, 40, 50 years, and those property taxes are actually rather minuscule. And when somebody comes in and buys that property, and on your listing ticket, they'll say, wow, those taxes are cheap this year. Well, when those property taxes uncap, guess what? You're paying extremely high amount of property taxes that you did not expect. So I will also leave in the description here links so you can figure out where to get your taxable value and know what kind of property taxes you'll be paying. Or again, you could always ask me. Now, one other thing you need to pay attention to, guys, with property taxes, you're also going to run into, you have summer taxes, you have winter taxes, and some of the villages even have village taxes. So each city has different kind of tax requirements. You may have a summer and a winter tax, just a summer tax, just a winter tax, or summer, winter, and a village tax. And pay special attention to special assessments, because those can be brought in for additional city water sewer lines, any kind of public roads works being done within the roads or sidewalks within a community. So pay attention to see if your property has a special assessment before you buy, or you can always ask me.